All right, welcome to today's Explainer. We are diving into a concept that completely flips the script on how we think about building wealth. Look, it's super easy to fall into the trap of thinking you need a massive windfall to get rich, right? Like you need to win the lottery, get a huge inheritance, or just land a gigantic salary right out of the gate. But the source material we're digging into today paints a totally different picture. It introduces us to something called the small seed strategy. And the main takeaway here is incredibly empowering. It shows us that lasting wealth isn't actually about having a huge income from day one. Instead, it's all about everyday financial habits and the structural decisions you make long before your paycheck ever gets big. Today, we're going to figure out exactly why some high earners stay completely broke, while others manage to build serious generational wealth using just small amounts of money.
To kick things off, I want you to picture a scenario. Let's say it's a totally random Tuesday, and boom, you just got a surprise $5,000 bonus at work. What is the very first thing you're going to do with that money? Seriously, take a second and think about it. Are you booking a vacation, upgrading your car, or maybe throwing it into a savings account? Well, the sources point out that your gut reaction to this super relatable scenario actually reveals everything about how you view wealth. It's essentially a mirror for your financial mindset. It's not really about the $5,000 itself, it's about that immediate impulse. Does your brain instinctively want to consume, to save, or to build?
Okay, let's move into Section 1, a tale of two paychecks.
Let's actually see this mindset play out in the real world. We're going to look at two coworkers, Lisa and Daniel. They both get that exact same $5,000 bonus and suddenly find themselves at a major financial crossroads. Now, both of them worked equally hard and they both completely deserve this money. But Lisa, she goes straight for the now. She goes out and buys a luxury handbag and the absolute newest smartphone on the market. And for a few weeks, it's great. She posts the photos, the compliments roll in, and she's riding high. But pretty soon, that excitement just kind of fizzles out. The phone isn't the newest model anymore, and the bag is just sitting in her closet. These are depreciating liabilities, meaning they don't earn her a single dime. Actually, to get that same rush again next year, she's going to have to spend even more. Now, Daniel thinks a little differently. He uses his bonus to upgrade his computer so he can take on freelance graphic design gigs. He buys an online certification course to level up his skills, puts a chunk into a diversified investment portfolio, and parks the rest in an emergency fund. Fast forward 1 year later, and Daniel is earning thousands of dollars more because of those strategic investments in his own skills. The difference between Lisa and Daniel wasn't the size of the bonus. It was 100% their financial behavior.
So how do we actually wire our brains to act a bit more like Daniel? Well, according to the texts, it all boils down to what's known as the million-dollar question. Before you make any major purchase, you need to hit pause and ask yourself, will this item put money into my pocket or will it continue taking money out? Or, to put it another way, will this purchase make me richer or poorer 5 years from now? That question needs to be your absolute mental anchor. It is the literal dividing line between an asset, which is something that feeds you, and a liability, which is something that just eats your money. If you can honestly answer that question before you swipe your card, you can save yourself thousands of dollars in bad financial decisions over your lifetime.
But here's the catch. To truly answer that million-dollar question, you've got to look way past the price tag. And that brings us to the whole concept of future expenses. You see, a lot of purchases don't just cost whatever you hand over to the cashier, they actively create new, ongoing bills. The sources use the classic example of buying a boat. You know the old joke, right? Boat stands for bust out another $1,000. It's the perfect example of an item that just keeps taking money out of your pocket long after the initial thrill of buying it is gone.
Think about it. When we break down the reality of owning that boat, it is so much more than just the purchase price. Buying it triggers an absolute avalanche of future expenses. You're looking at insurance premiums, crazy fuel costs, regular maintenance, monthly storage fees, the inevitable repairs, and annual registration. All of a sudden, that one-time purchase has turned into a permanent monthly drain on your bank account. Financially successful people, they don't care about the sticker price. They calculate the total cost of ownership. They know that a liability is anything that demands to be financially fed every month without ever giving you a return on your money.
Which brings us nicely to Section 2, climbing the asset ladder.
So, how exactly do we go at acquiring these assets systematically? The sources give us this great structural framework called the asset ladder. You can think of building wealth as climbing this ladder, and the catch is you really can't skip the rungs. Let's walk through it. Step 1 is investing in yourself. Your own ability to earn is always your highest return on investment. Taking small amounts of money to buy books or courses to learn a new skill is naturally going to bump up your income. Step 2 is the emergency fund. Sure, it might not earn crazy high interest, but it acts as a shield so you aren't forced to sell off your investments when life throws you a curveball. Then we hit Step 3,
financial assets. This is where you make small, consistent investments and let compound growth do the heavy lifting over time. Step 4 brings us to income-producing assets. We're talking rental properties, a small business, digital products, or dividend stocks that actively pump cash into your pocket. And finally, step 5 is luxury. Now, pay attention here, because luxury is not forbidden, not at all. It's just meant to be enjoyed at the very end of the ladder once your assets are actually strong enough to pay for your lifestyle, so you aren't just relying on your next paycheck.
To really hammer home why we need to build our wealth this way, the sources use this brilliant visual analogy of an apple tree. So think of your wealth as an apple tree. You basically have two choices here. Option A is you chop the tree down and sell the wood. Sure, you get a fast, short-term payout, but the tree is gone forever. Option B is you protect the tree, you let it grow, and you harvest the apples every single season. Over time, you plant the seeds from those apples, and eventually, you've grown an entire financial orchard that just keeps producing fruit for you year after year. Your assets are that orchard. The goal isn't just to hoard a pile of cash so you can spend it. The goal is to actually own things that continue to generate value on their own.
But how do you know if something you're buying is a tree or if it's just firewood? Well, the truth is, context is everything. Let's take the camera example from the text. Student 1 goes out, buys a super expensive camera, uses it maybe twice, and then just leaves it sitting on a shelf. In that specific context, the camera is a total liability. It is literally losing value every single day it gathers dust. But then you have student 2. They buy the exact same camera, but they take the time to learn photography. They start shooting graduation photos, they build up a portfolio, and they launch a side business that actually generates income. The physical object didn't change at all, just the way it was utilized did. This is huge because it proves you can start a side hustle simply by turning tools you might already own into income producers.
All right, moving right along to Section 3, the lifestyle inflation trap.
Now, even if you were climbing that asset ladder perfectly, there is this massive wealth killer just waiting in the wings, and it's called lifestyle inflation. This happens when your income goes up and instantly your desire for an expensive lifestyle goes right up with it. You get a raise at work and suddenly you're convinced you need a bigger apartment, a brand new car, and designer clothes. So your income went up, yeah, but your savings stayed exactly where they were. Imagine two different people and they both just got a $10,000 raise. Person A blows the entire raise on lifestyle upgrades. 5 years down the line, even though they're making more money, they are still living paycheck to paycheck. Person B, on the other hand, takes just half of that $10,000 raise and buys more assets. 5 years later, their wealth has grown exponentially. It just goes to show a really fundamental truth. Wealth is determined by your financial behavior and your discipline, not just by having a big salary. When you get a raise, you've got to strengthen your financial foundation before you go inflating your lifestyle.
Let's wrap things up with Section 4, Common Wealth-Building Mistakes. As we finish our look at the small seed strategy, let's do a quick fire run through 4 major roadblocks that keep even high earners completely broke. Number 1, confusing price with value. Look, just because something costs a fortune does not magically make it an asset. If an expensive purchase doesn't improve your financial future, it's just a really pricey liability. Number 2, buying to impress others. People waste so much money trying to look rich. But people who are actually wealthy, they care way more about quietly growing their assets behind the scenes than they do about showing off their stuff. Number 3, ignoring maintenance. Like we talked about with the boat, you always have to calculate those ongoing costs. Because sometimes the monthly upkeep will drain you faster than the actual purchase price did. And finally, number 4, waiting until one day. This is a big one. So many people say, oh, I'll start investing when I make more money. But the entire point of the small seed strategy is that you have to build a habit of buying assets right now with whatever small amounts of money you have so that you're actually ready when the big opportunities come your way.
Which brings us to our final challenge for you. As you go about your week, right before you make your next significant purchase, I want you to just pause. Honestly ask yourself, will this make me richer or poorer 5 years from now? Is this putting money in my pocket or is it going to keep taking it out? It's such a simple shift in how you think, but as we've seen today, it literally makes $1 million difference. And that wraps up today's explainer on the small seed strategy. In our next lesson, we are going to build on all of this by covering the asset first rule. And we'll dive really deep into the mechanics of cash flow to show exactly why even top earners sometimes find themselves running completely out of cash. Thanks so much for learning with us, and we'll see you in the next explainer.